Welcome back to Nervous System Part 2. Um, I split this in half because the nervous system is so big that I decided it was a little too much to cover in one video. So here's the second half. Here's where we left off. We left off talking about dividing the peripheral nervous system in half. There are neurons that take information up, and there are neurons that send information down. Just a quick walk back in time to see how we got here. We're looking at the parts of the nervous system and how it works. We're dividing it in half. We're talking about the job of your nervous system, which is to bring in, receives information from either inside the body or outside, and tells the body what to do with that information. We looked at the parts of a neuron, how it carries information. These are the parts: the axon, dendrite, cell body. That's what it actually looks like, highly magnified. We talked about the myelin sheath and how it's important to have some healthy fat in your diet to help the brain develop normally. Then we talked about dividing the nervous system in half one way, the CNS and the PNS, central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, the peripheral nervous system, everything else. Central nervous system does all the thinking and processing and coordinating activities. A little bit of information about the human brain. And then the peripheral nervous system, the job is to connect the central nervous system to the outside world and different parts of the inside world as well. It connects the central nervous system to everything else. So then today, we're going to look at two different kinds of neurons: the ascending or sensory neurons and the descending or motor neurons. Sensory informations. Sensory neurons carry information from the body to the brain. That means that signal goes up. The motor neurons carry information from the brain down to the muscles and organs. So these terms are interchangeable. Sensory can also be called ascending. Motor neurons can also be called descending. This is sort of what it looks like when you hear the phone ring. That information is picked up by sensory organs in your ear, passed along ascending neurons in the peripheral nervous system. It brings that information up to the central nervous system. Your brain then decides, do I have caller ID? Do I know that person? Do I really want to talk to my mom right now? And then sends the information back down the descending nervous pathway, where it activates a motor neuron. Maybe your brain decides, no, I don't need to send any information because I don't want to pick up that phone. But if it is your boyfriend and you really want to talk to him, then it sends information down the descending pathway in your peripheral nervous system, activates muscles to reach out. And remember when phones used to look like that? Some of you have probably never used a phone like that, but back in the day, they used to actually be wired to the wall. I know, really weird. On this next screen, what I want you to do is actually read the colors out loud. So although the words say something different, I want you to say the colors. Ready? And I'm going to show you how to do it the first time, then I want you to do it. Look at the colors, and I'm going to say red, blue, green, red, yellow, blue, green, red, red, yellow, blue, red. That's what I want you to do. Okay, are you ready? You're going to say the colors. Ready, go. How did that go? Now I'm going to flip back for a second. Now this time I want you to read the words. I'm going to show you how to do it. Then you give it a try. Blue, green, yellow, pink, red, blue. I screwed it up already. Go ahead, pause the video and give it a try. Read the words. I know, your brain gets mixed up. It's harder than it looks. And that's because when we talk about ascending signals going up to your brain, This little experiment actually sends two different signals up to your brain, and instead of simply reading like the words on the black in the bottom of the screen, try it. The famous Stroop effect is named after J. Ridley Stroop, blah blah blah. Those are easy to read because it's only sending one signal to your brain. All the letters are black, so you just have to decipher. Your brain just processes the shapes of the letters and makes sounds out of it. But here, your brain is receiving two very different signals. It's receiving one signal for the word red and one signal for the word blue. Here, your brain is receiving one signal for the word green and one signal for the word blue. So each time that signal reaches the brain on the sensory or ascending neuron, it's got to process and sort out which one of those signals to act on. Then it sends a signal to the motor neuron to start talking. But these two signals sometimes get mixed up. I'm going to try it again. Blue, green, yellow, pink, red, orange, gray, black, purple, tan, white, brown. Got it. You can flip back, pause, try it again. Now, the peripheral nervous system can be divided in half a different way as well. Two different kinds of stimulus. One will elicit a somatic response, and the other one will elicit an autonomic response. A somatic response is something that you have control over. The somatic responses are the voluntary responses, the ones that you think about and control. So if we look back at the example, well, this is a somatic response when you decide whether you're going to reach out your hand and answer the phone or not. But playing sports, you're going to decide whether you make the pass or drive the lane. Anything you have to think about is a somatic response. Your brain responds to certain stimuli automatically. You don't even have to think about it, such as your heart rate increasing when your muscles work. The autonomic responses, those are the involuntary ones, the ones you don't have to think about and control. So when the sensor goes off in your brain and says the oxygen saturation in our bloodstream, in our circulatory system is really low, well, you don't have to think about starting to breathe more. When you're exercising, you don't have to think about increasing your heart rate. Even our response to stimulus early in the unit, when we looked at turning on the lights and watching your pupils respond, that's an autonomic response. You don't have to think about it. It happens on its own. Now, there are some gray areas where somatic responses eventually become autonomic responses. When you were very young and just learning to walk was a somatic response. You had to think about every single step. If you're just learning to skate, maybe you're at the same stage where every stride is a somatic response. You've got to think about it. Eventually, some of those somatic responses may become autonomic. You don't have to think about taking steps down the hallway as you walk to your next class anymore. Remember back when we used to have classes? Yeah. So some somatic responses can turn into autonomic responses. And then there's the reflex. It skips a step. Even an autonomic response, it goes up to your brain processes, and it sends information back down. So even if its information is body temperature is starting to rise, so your brain says we need to start sweating to cool the surface of the skin. It's autonomic, you don't have to think about it, but it does involve processing in the brain. There are some responses that skip the brain, and usually those are related to the body protecting itself, like when you grab something hot. If you've ever touched something and you didn't know it was hot, you find out it's hot, and you actually drop it before the pain signal reaches your brain. It's a pretty cool trick the body can play to help take care of itself. So as that pain signal is traveling up to your brain, if you actually wait until the signal gets up to your brain, gets processed here, and your brain says, huh, that's really hot, and then sends a message down to your muscles to drop the pot because it's hot, your hand would be pretty burned in the meantime. So the body plays a trick. As this signal goes through the spinal cord, normally the pain signal traveling from your hand would have to go up the spinal cord into your brain, and then the signal would come back down to tell your hand to drop the pot. But there's a trick. When it's a really strong signal that the brain interprets as pain, let me just clear this off. We skip a step to speed things up and help preserve your body. Or maybe you've stepped on a nail. It's the same thing. When you've stepped on a nail and you've actually felt your leg crumble underneath you. When the pain signal comes up here, gets to your spinal cord, well, yes, the signal does continue to go up to your brain. It does. It finishes the loop we just talked about, brain processing, and then later you feel the pain and you drop the pot. But when that signal is strong enough, it actually short circuits right in the spinal cord and heads right back down and activates these muscles here to pull your hand away, these muscles here to drop the pot. So that's called a reflex loop, where it saves time. It saves valuable milliseconds. You actually end up dropping the pot before you consciously feel the pain. And that's an important part of the nervous system called, where were we? Called the reflex. In some situations, sensory and motor neurons work without involving the brain. These help to protect the body by making exceptionally fast decisions. A reflex is an automatic response by the nervous system. It skips the brain and goes straight from the ascending back down to the descending neuron. So, things you need to know about the nervous system. Let's wrap it up. 1. The central nervous system is divided into two systems, central and peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is made up of the brain and spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system is everything else. Oops, missed one. The parts of the neuron, you need to know the cell body, the dendrite, and the axon. Sensory neurons bring information up. Motor neurons bring information down. Somatic responses are ones we need to think about or process. Autonomic happen involuntarily. They happen automatically, from the word automatic. And a reflex is the fastest response there is. It happens on its own. It actually doesn't even involve the brain, and it just directly activates the muscles that it takes to take care of the body. So a couple things that can go wrong with the nervous system. Alzheimer's disease, brain disease that causes problems with memory, thinking, and behavior. And very sad and tragic illness where parts of the brain, it's called an autoimmune disease. For whatever reason, the body starts to attack itself and starts to actually eat away parts of the brain. Parkinson's disease, degenerative disorder of the central nervous system that affects motor skills, thinking, processing, and other functions. And we're going to quickly hear from a celebrity some of you might know.
Back to the Future was a film that helped define the 1980s and made Michael J. Fox a star. More hit movies followed, as did a string of awards for his TV series like Spin City. Now, though, his future's increasingly defined by Parkinson's disease.
As soon as I wake up, I can't go back to sleep. I mean, it starts going. I would say that's the toughest part in the morning is to kind of go, well, I'm up whether I like it or not, I'm up now. And the other thing that happens to me in the morning, first thing is I get dystonia, which is kind of cramping, and it can be very extreme.
In a rare interview on ABC, he spoke about the new challenges from something as simple as using a toothbrush.
So I have to put the brush down on the countertop, hold it flat, and get the brush stuck, because if I hold it, I'll miss it. It's a moving target. But then once I get all loaded up, then I just have to bring it up to my mouth and then just let it go.
Remarkably, he also revealed that ice skating appears to temporarily block his symptoms, but only while he keeps moving. There's no cure for Parkinson's, but Michael J. Fox has been fighting to change that. He's gone from actor to activist, campaigning for politicians backing stem cell research, which might offer hope to Parkinson's sufferers. Millions have seen the powerful TV campaign he made a few years ago.
They say all politics is local, but it's not always the case. What you do in Missouri matters to millions of Americans. Americans like me. Michael J. Fox returns to ABC.
He devotes much of his life now to raising awareness about Parkinson's, and after many years off the big screen, he says he still watches his old life on the small screen.
And at any given moment, I can flip through a channel and see myself, and for a long time it was just like I stumble on an infomercial or something and just keep clicking. But now every now and then I will stop and watch it a little bit, and I'll just enjoy it. I'll just enjoy it for what it is and the time it was in my life, and I don't have any. There's no wistfulness in it. There's no longing.
Richard Liston, BBC News, Washington.
Very honest, extraordinarily brave.
Very candid, yeah, Michael.
So that's Parkinson's disease, and we're going to take a look at one more: multiple sclerosis, a disease in which the body's own immune system attacks and damages the neurons. A friend of mine is struggling with this right now. Take a look at MS.
Multiple sclerosis, MS, is a disease that affects the central nervous system, the CNS, which consists of the brain, spinal cord, and optic nerves. Everything we do, whether it's taking a step, solving a problem, or simply breathing, relies on the proper functioning of the CNS. To understand how MS may impact the CNS, we must explore the disease at the cellular level. In the brain, millions of nerve cells called neurons continually send and receive signals. Each signal is a minute but necessary part of intricate CNS orchestrations that culminate in the actions, sensations, thoughts, and emotions that comprise the human experience. Normally, the path over which a nerve signal travels is protected by a type of insulation called the myelin sheath. This insulation is essential for nerve signals to reach their target. In MS, the myelin sheath is eroded, and the underlying wire-like nerve fiber is also damaged. This leads to a breakdown in the ability of the nerve cells to transmit signals. It is believed that the loss of myelin is the result of mistaken attacks by immune cells. Immune cells protect the body against foreign substances, such as bacteria and viruses. But in MS, something goes awry. Immune cells infiltrate the brain and spinal cord, seek out the myelin, and attack. As ongoing inflammation and tissue damage occurs, nerve signals are disrupted. This causes unpredictable symptoms that can range from numbness or tingling to blindness and paralysis. These losses may be temporary or permanent.
So, couple things that can go wrong with the nervous system. Alzheimer's typically affects memory. Parkinson's affects mobility, and multiple sclerosis can really affect everything. And that wraps it up for a two-part series on nervous system. Thanks for sticking with us.